Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to the IBM Developer channel on Twitch. My name is Lorelei Rue, and today will be the final stream of a three-part series that we've been talking and kind of going into the details of the VMware Solutions shared that's available on IBM Cloud. In our first session, we spent some time going through the different options that are available to choose in the ordering part of the portal. There's probably about 4 or 5 different questions there and a very fast provisioning. Once that environment was provisioned, we started looking at how to understand and view the virtual data center construct within VMware Solutions Shared. We talked a little bit about how we're leveraging VMware Cloud Director to support a secure multi-tenant infrastructure for customers to basically have their VMware workloads live in a safe environment. So one of the reasons that VMware Solutions Shared is available and that it allows for a quick, easy entry point into cloud for customers that have VMware workloads on-prem, and they may be looking to migrate into cloud space for plethora of different reasons. It also allows for a quick bursting or expansion for certain environments, such as your development or test environments, or any other environment that would want to be in the cloud. And by leveraging the VMware Solutions Shared platform, the IBM takes care of the infrastructure and the actual hypervisor layer, so that the customer can focus on the actual workloads themselves without the administrative overhead of the VMware components. So without further delay, because this is a Twitch stream and I'm sure that you don't want to hear me talking the whole time, I want to introduce the guests that we have. First is JJ Ashkar, IBM Developer Advocate. JJ, welcome.
Hello, and we have a comment already. This is going to be great.
Gridhawk says this is going to be great. Well, I hope so, Gridhawk. JJ is also doing the behind-the-scenes production of this Twitch stream, so kindly appreciated. And next, I want to introduce Brian Buckland. He's CTO of IBM Cloud Infrastructure as a Solutions.
Morning, everyone.
And Brian has, we've all been working together on the other 2 series. We had a gentleman by the name of Sam Cooper, which was the manager of the engineering of the entire VMware Solutions Shared. So go back and check those out to get caught up. Today, we have our environment built. We have created, in the last session, we created a handful of virtual machines to demonstrate kind of our little application. And so what we'll focus on today is primarily 2 components. We're going to be looking at VEEAM and Zerto. The focus of VEEAM is primarily on backup and restore. And then the focus on Zerto is more of a data recovery, like replication environment. So we'll talk through those. Where do we want to start today, Brian? On the portal, or are we going to dive right into VEEAM? Where should we go?
Let's dive into the portal.
Okay, so this is our portal. Once we provisioned our VMware Solutions Shared environment, we have our details presented here. And who can share that?
Oh, JJ,
if you would be so
I'm actually having some technical difficulties on my side.
JJ's having technical difficulties.
All right.
Chrome has decided to change permissions on me, unfortunately. So I'm actually diligently working on this in the background. But
splendid. So what did we want to talk about there, Brian?
We're just going to go back to the Zerto instance. We requested the Cloud Connect instance, so which was how we get Zerto from on-prem to connect into the VMware shared solution. And that would allow us to replicate the virtual machines from your on-premise to the cloud, which then covers off our DR and even as a migration strategy.
Right.
It allows us to migrate those workloads in.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point, actually. So from a scenario or a use case of migration VMware workload via virtual machine into cloud, right? There's migration technologies, but also at the end of the day, really what's happening is you're creating a snapshot or a backup of what's existing on prem, moving that safely into the cloud environment, and then spinning it up, and then that's basically your migration aspect. So that's a really good point. I think it's a use case that sometimes gets overlooked when talking about like the not only are we protecting ourselves from data corruption and data loss or some sort of cyber attack or things like that, right? But also we can leverage it for other uses. And even when it's in cloud, we can go cloud to other locations within cloud for even higher resiliency.
Correct. And one of the values of vCloud Director is that we can replicate this data in. Customers will only be charged for the storage that they're using. And then you're not being charged for the compute or the memory until those virtual machines are powered on.
Right.
So by giving you that, that's the true value of DR. You're just replicating, and it only get charged once you get the powering on the instance. You're only paying for your storage.
Exactly. And we talked about that in our first session for anyone that wants to go back to find details. But basically, the two different subscription models that are available upon consumption is it's a reserved pricing. And the reserved pricing is basically a guarantee that, X amount of virtual CPU, X amount of virtual RAM, and the storage needed to actually house the data of those virtual disks. That's one model. But then also, as you mentioned, there's the burstable model. So you set reservations of here's what these workloads look like. However, the cost savings is then passed forward to the customer because really all that's being consumed is the data that's on the disk. So that's a recurring charge for that. But the compute and the memory, the actual hypervisor layer, the actual workload itself wouldn't actually be charged until a DR event or some other scenario where they spun those workloads up or bursted them or whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
Good point. So how are we doing, JJ? Are we back to order?
Yeah, give me two seconds.
All right. So this is, we provision our environment. This is our portal page. This is kind of the details of what we would see after our environment is provisioned. And go ahead and take it away, Brian. What are we?
All right,
what are we doing?
We want to get into the VMware. It's on your left hand from the hamburger at the top left.
It's coming.
Cool. You'll be able to see the
nice
VMware resources.
The hamburger is that what the
That's what I've always called it.
Is that the HTML5 code for
3 lines?
The menu drop. Excuse me.
And go into resources.
Yeah, so it should be the VMware shared.
Here we go.
All right. So you would have seen this page the other day. So if we scroll to the bottom where we did the Zerto information. So here you can see the Zerto Cloud Connect and the details have been provisioned. So one thing to note here is in order to find the Zerto organization, if you click on the change password, and here you can see you've got your org name, and then you can change your password in order to reset that, so you know what that is.
Yeah. So how often do you need to know your Zorg org name? Is it every time, or is it like once?
Just once, because we need that to log into the Zerto Cloud instance.
By the way, we have a question. Gridhawk, sorry. Dedicated versus shared? Question mark.
Dedicated versus shared.
I think that was previous screen.
Maybe I was talking about the two different subscription models, which would be
probably
reserved versus non-reserved.
Yeah,
Dedicated versus shared. That's probably something different,
so
right?
Yeah, so the vCloud Director is a multi-tenant solution today. And within that shared instance, we have OnDemand, which allows you to, here's the capacity I want, it's on demand, versus the other deployment within VMware Shared is reserved, which is a guarantee that you can power on that capacity within the environment.
Nice.
And then from a dedicated angle, there's a separate solution under the VMware Solution banner, which is called VMware Serve or VCS. And that's standing up dedicated metal environment for a customer. So there's two separate solutions today.
Yeah. And I would also color that by saying the kind of key differentiator from, like a VMware admin perspective, with the dedicated VCS offering, that would be, everything, the keys to the kingdom, root to ESX, vCenter admin access, whereas your VCD, VMware Solutions Shared, what the customer is getting a virtual data center construct where they have full administration over their virtual machines, but they're not getting root access to ESX. They're not getting full admin access to vCenter, right? So that's kind of a differentiator. Also I would, add to that. So who does that, right? Who manages that from a solution shared perspective? That's IBM managed all the way up to the hypervisor, including the hypervisor. So the actual VMs are the customer responsibility and focus. VCS is we're giving the infrastructure all based on the hardware compatibility list and working with the different vendors, VMware, etc. And then we have add-on services. So we basically give, here's the storage, here's the compute, here's the networking construct, here's the reference architecture of which you could build an actual, validated VMware environment where you have full control as a customer. So that's another key difference there.
Yes. So once you've got the Zerto credential, you can load into the Zerto console and you'll connect that to your on-premise environment. So let me quickly share. So when I click on the Zerto portal, you see.
One second.
Sorry.
There we go.
We're there? Cool. All right. So this is the Zerto console. You would have entered the Zorg name at the top. You have the user admin and the password that would have been reset and provided to you. From there, wrong password, 26. From here, you got access into the Zerto product, and from here you would normally follow your normal process to creating a virtual port group and set up the virtual machines you want to replicate.
And that's just basically the same as you would with Zerto, native like application wise, right? You have you set up your protection groups, you assign your VMs inside the protection groups, and then you create your DR events based on the protection group. So you could put like maybe my databases I want to replicate at like 5 minutes asynchronous, but like maybe my file servers are good at 30 minutes or whatever the case may be. And that's all adjusted via the protection group. That's all the same within this construct as you would see as a typical and the if you're familiar at all, right, with the construct of disaster recovery and your jobs and your DR events and actually what happens and the order of which things spin up, etc. This adheres. It's really best of breed from perspective, of in the VMware construct, and also as in a multi-tenant provider environment, being able to have that functionality without the actual full suite of Zerto, which is pretty impressive.
Absolutely. So the other product we were talking about, like I said, that's the vCloud Director, have our virtual machine. So also we have Veeam Backup and Veeam Cloud Connect. So we're going to dive a bit more into the Veeam Backup, as that's a common use case. You have these virtual machines that we have in vCloud Director, and we want to back them up. So from here, you can click on your Veeam Backup, and you get your self-service portal. Let me just double check on the password. So from here, we log into the Veeam.
In the top left corner?
Is
that a turtle? In the top left corner?
It's not a hamburger.
It's not a hamburger. So here we have Veeam, and to show you an example, we had 2 web application or virtual machines, and we've been backing them up for the last few days. So you can see here, we've got a daily backup of these virtual machines that we can restore from.
And when you set these up, did you what kind of parameters did you set?
Yeah, let's go through an example. So let me create a new job. I'll call this WebDB for the other virtual machine. So we've got restore point. In here, we're going to add the virtual machine.
Brian, can I back you up?
Sure.
Can you go to that first screen? I just wanted to let's talk about this for a second. So we've got retention policy, description, retention. So this is our latest backups to keep, and these are our restore points. So these restore points, if I'm not mistaken, the way that this works is when this is provisioned out, there's the actual backup that takes place, the snapshot, let's say, right, the VADP mechanism that pulls that to disk. That's the first initiation of the job itself. But then are we leveraging, we're pushing this off to the disk, and that's part of what is being consumed by the customer as part of their storage cost, or is that like a separate thing, or do we know?
I believe it's so we have storage behind Veeam, and that's where we're backing that up to, and the customers charge for the backup as how much space we use.
Yeah, and then for long-term archiving, we could leverage cloud object storage for even a lower cost consumption, price per gig or whatever the case may be. So
correct.
Okay, cool.
So we're giving the admins the tools that they are most comfortable with in the cloud, leveraging, for instance, Veeam here, so they can just take it and basically have what they have on premise, but just in the cloud. Yes, is that a way to describe this?
Definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll go to the next page, and we're going to select our virtual machine. So you can see the vCloud Director organization, our instant, and it's got a list of the different database. So in the first job, I backed up the web app, and this job, let me select the WebDB virtual machines. So in here we have option. We can enable application awareness process.
And that's for your your proper quiesce of certain agent based databases and stuff like that, I would guess.
Yep.
Okay.
And then there's guest index as well, which allows you to index the files.
That's like your Windows volume manager stuff,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, and then
It's always been, I don't know how others feel about this, but it's always been my to not use that. Things typically work much better, and there's really no benefit other than, especially if you set up your jobs correctly, right? There's shouldn't need that.
And then guest OS credit to be able to access the virtual machines, to be able to run these agent-based configurations. We're just gonna go next. Here we have the scheduling of the job. So, do you want it done every day, on weekends,
just
or
as
weekdays?
another pause here, Brett. Sorry, I love
Yep.
talking about backup and recovery. So right now, just on that screen that was right before this, right, we were talking about application consistency and file level consistency. Without those in place, right, just from a general perspective, it's important to realize that the backups that are created, right, like, so say for instance, we're backing up this application server, file server, whatever the case may be. We're backing it up. It's basically taking a snapshot through VMware ADP, or it's their APIs for data protection. It's calling a snapshot. It's moving that snapshot to disk, releasing that snapshot, and then like doing the VEEAM stuff that it does, right? The actual backup that's there, right? It's important to just keep in mind, without using agents, it's going to be a crash consistent backup. So that means when you restore that backup and you turn it on, it's going to act as if it had just survived a power outage, right? So it's not going to be gracefully, it's going to be it's not going to be a graceful. It's just going to be the same as like, oop, I hit the power button and now I turned it back on. And so whatever it needs to do, file system checks, all that kind of stuff would still have to happen when that workload comes back up if you're not using an agent. So that's every single backup recovery software that's out there to date. That may change in the future, but crash consistent copy, it's a common thing. That's like, what does this really mean? It just means it's just like the power was shut off and turns back on. The same way that if a host dies in VMware, and then that VM spins up on the surviving nodes of the cluster, it's in that crash consistent state. It's that same exact state of virtual machine. So just important to throw out there. Spend some time on it. Thank you.
Yes. So scheduling option. So we have set time of day, set time, particular days of the week, or monthly, or you want it every couple of hours. Here we have email notification, so you can be alerted for when the jobs fail, or if something needs action. We'll click finish, and that's creating the backup job as per a normal VEEAM implementation. So you can now see it in the listed job, and we can force that straight away and kick off a start.
Excellent.
Nice.
It's off and running.
Perfect.
One less thing to worry about, right? Isn't that the whole point?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. So, and then you were showing us now, like, let's take a look at what happens when we have our jobs done? Where do they go? Where do we see these jobs?
So if you click on one of the names and go to web back,
okay,
and you can see historical of your environment being backed up.
Can you force the restore from this location, or do you need to go through something else? It's good to back up, but as they say, it's a Schrodinger's backup until you actually try to restore something.
That's right.
Let's give it a shot.
Cool. Wait, this is my production environment. Don't do this. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Let's see. So we've got a full and incremental. Let's see.
Oh, just an increment. It should be fast, right? I mean, there shouldn't be any difference.
Oh, here we go. Restore. So
Overwrite, keep.
Yeah, overwrite's fine.
we can choose to go back to that time.
Just thinking about it. How about now? Nope. No.
No. That's going to go back to, what's that, 2 days ago.
Uh-oh. Sorry, I went off script here, and now I may have made it angry. Sorry.
So GridHawk in the chat ran into a known limitation of doing a point-in-time SQL Server Restore, and he popped in a link there. And just to kind of, so basically, if you're using application-aware image processing, and I kind of just talked about this a little bit, but if for Microsoft SQL or for Oracle database backups, the options application-aware and item restore aren't supported in this version of Veeam. It's being looked at and trying to fix. But the way the workaround in GridHawk, I think you end up doing this, is restoring the complete VM, and then that has an actual downtime because that DB is offline during that time, because you have to actually do a full restore and then play back any of the log messages, right? So that's not the way that it should be. But yeah, that's a documented issue at the moment.
Looks like it's working.
Yep, restore's going through.
At least I see green check marks. That's usually a good sign. Usually.
Green is good.
So could we go to our VMware?
Yeah, we should see the things down in the status, right?
Let's have a look. So we can see it's going through, has been updating that virtual machine.
All right. GridHawk. LOL, good one. Thank you.
Schrodinger's backup doesn't exist until you see it actually work. So.
Yep. All the backups work. All the backups work fine. Well, what about the restores? Ooh.
I sent it to Dev Null.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're super fast.
Super fast.
Don't do that at home.
No, never. Never.
That's just a joke.
There we go.
Going through restoring the hard.
Nice. And can we see this in our virtual machine portal here? Let's see.
I think it's just checkboxes.
Comes right back. But does it like power back on, or how does that?
There was a checkbox to power.
Oh,
back
okay.
Checkbox to power on. We didn't check it.
Okay. So we should actually see it just in powered off state until. Well, no, it's already there. Hold on. Go back to the self-service one. It's still doing stuff. So it's not actually like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still writing.
Still writing to restore the hard disk.
Okay. Well, that might take a minute.
Yeah. All right. You want to move on?
Yep.
Let's not watch paint dry.
We can go on.
So, this is the summary. We have Veeam that can do the backup. We also have Veeam as the migration tag. And we also have Zerto as our migration and disaster recovery target.
And what about, do we want to talk about Cloud Connect a little bit briefly here? So
we can, yeah, let me.
Yeah, so the Cloud Connect thing, right? Okay, so that is, it gives a ability for a seamless replication of the workloads that are on premise and moving those into IBM Cloud into this environment that was just created, right? So you can use Veeam Cloud Connect as disaster recovery for failover during your on-premise outage or DR event, or you could use it, as we talked about briefly before, of actually permanently moving those workloads directly to IBM Cloud, right? So basically, what is needed is a pairing is set up, right, between the cloud environment that's in the VCD, the virtual data center construct, and the on-prem location. And I don't know, like we don't really have one to demonstrate, do we?
Not today.
But we can kind of talk through that. So basically, when you do this, you're going to be specifying your cloud gateway settings on both sides. So that's like the DNS name and the port, pretty simple. You're going to be using the credentials that are provided to you, and basically that's going to create a TLS certificate, PKI, right? Basically, back and forth to allow that pairing to happen, and then from within that, you can basically set up your jobs on-prem now, connect into your VMware environment on-prem, connect your jobs, and then your destination will now be pointing to the IBM Cloud environment that you just provisioned, and then you can set those up as a backup, just as a backup always, right? If you just wanted to use just a backup location for a disaster recovery purpose, or if you wanted to actually evacuate those from off on-premise into cloud, you can do that in the same way. And it works relatively simple, and it does the same way. So it will do a crash consistent copy, right, over to the destination. So when you spin that up, it would look as if like, oh, just lost the power, do its thing, and be back online. So from a migration perspective, right, if you do use this for migration, it's not going to be a live migration. So there is that little bit of time that it takes to actually synchronize, get the last bit of synchronization over, and then actually do the failover and then spin up the new workload. So there's a little bit of downtime associated with it, but it is a method for migration.
Absolutely.
That's basically, I think, all I wanted to cover. We've gone through everything else. Any last?
So the only other area I was going to mention, we're on IBM Cloud Developer. The VMware Shared has full API access, so you can write your Terraform scripts. Nice. You can write all your Ansible scripts, and there are all providers out there for the vCloud Director. So you can automate building your networks, powering your virtual machines up and down, and you've got that full infrastructure as a service capability, or nice. Infrastructure as code.
Nice. That's great to hear. That is great to hear. Yeah. Cool. Well,
cool.
I feel pretty good.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the folks that popped in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for your time, everybody.
Bye.